and thank you so much for joining us this evening right here on Transforming Families. My name is Faith Kaulu, and I hope you are keeping well and staying safe wherever you are. So stay with us until the end. Today on Transforming Families, we are talking about domestic violence. Now, statistics indicate that over 40% of women who are in marriages in the country have experienced domestic violence. Of course, this in mind, we know that many cases are not reported to authorities, and the few that are, women don't get justice or receive medical care. And even as we talk about the cases that are not reported to authorities, we also understand that men too are victims of domestic violence, and they rarely report the instances, and that is why it is very hard to clearly get a statistic or understand what percentage of men actually who are in marriages are victims of domestic violence. And we are going to highlight that in today's show right here. So stay with us until the very end. And I am gladly joined by Rev Edward Karanja, who is a minister with the Presbyterian Church of West Africa, as well as a marriage and family therapist. Thank you so much, Rev, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Faith. It's always a pleasure to be here in CAT TV, in Transforming Families program.
Sure.
Because like we say here in CAT TV, in fact, Transforming Families, a stable family for a stable
society.
Yes.
Indeed, thank you so much for that. And at the very end is the lovely Professor Catherine Gashiva. Thank you so much for being here today, Professor. Professor Catherine Gashiva is the director of the Kenya Institute of Business and Counseling Studies, as well as a counseling psychologist. Thank you so much for your presence this evening.
Thank you, Faith. Always happy to nurture families. Nurturing families like a tree, like we said when we started off the program. And when we nurture them, then they're able to take care of themselves.
Sure thing. And it is always amazing to see a tree being nurtured very well and it growing and the lovely flowers. And that is how we want the family to be in the society. Today we are talking about a very sensitive issue, and I'd say it needs a bold person and a courageous person to come out and say, I'm a victim of violence in this relationship. Could be a marriage, could be a cohabitation, situationship, yeah. And when we talk about domestic violence, a lot of people understand, including me. Initially, what came to my mind is the kick here, the blow there, the black eye that is there. But there are other forms of violence in a relationship that are not necessarily physical. We cannot see, but this person is actually undergoing or a victim of violence in the relationship. Professor Catherine, let us begin by highlighting some of the violence that I'd say are experienced. It could be a marriage or could be an intimate relationship.
Like you've said, the one that is more apparent to people when we talk about domestic violence is the physical, because we see it. We see that someone has been cut or someone was thrown on the ground, and then they hit their leg, and we can see they are going to the hospital because they have been hurt. We understand the physical. Even when it comes to the scratching, you will see the scratches. But we also have the emotional. The emotional, where you are put down, where you are disrespected, where you are shamed, even in public, you're called names, you're told you're foolish, there is no one who is like you. Those kind of things. It may not be physical, but it goes very deep in the inside. And also we have the economical, like in situations where someone is even stopped from working. You're stopped from working, you cannot proceed with your education, you're made to sign financial transactions without your will. You are given little money that you cannot be able to use, or not enough for the use that you have in the family. Many things that happen inside there, and it can make someone feel this is getting too much. You cannot even use my assets without my permission, or without us discussing together. And we also have the spiritual violation. I can be quoting the Bible anytime, even when I'm doing things that are hurtful to you. And that's spiritualizing situations that need to be seen objectively, makes the other one feel you're using religion and spirituality as a weapon to hit at me. And therefore, people feel even that is something that needs to be dealt with when it comes now to the spiritual violation.
Yeah.
So there are many forms that we can look into, and sexual violation that we've talked about in one of the evenings. And when someone is taken through that, whether it is intimate partner sexual violation or it is a violation of a member of the family by others within the household, that again is violence. So yeah, many things happen where people's lights are taken away and people's needs are not respected, and people feel I am not in the right place if this is what is happening to me.
Well, let's talk about the dilemma that is always there, because this is a partner, this is your partner who is abusive to you. So you are confused. You do not know whether you should report this partner or you should hold on to him. Maybe he'll change or maybe she'll change. You know, in the beginning it's always so rosy. So you have that hope that things might go back to the way they used to be. Reverend, what would you say?
Domestic violence, takes many forms, just like Professor has said, because we have always thought about the punch. You know, has punched you, have a black eye and all that. Which sometimes I say is the least compared to emotional, violence. The emotional violence can be worse because it can completely destroy you. We can be seeing a physically fit person, but they have become nothing inside of them. I would say if you have a spouse who you are fighting, who has some traits of a fight and all that, I always say it did not begin the moment you married the person. The moment you settle down with the person. Maybe those emotional imbalances in the person, the flaring anger that one almost wants to hit you, they might have been there before you got married. Unfortunately, many times people ignore that. And I always tell people, when you're in your courtship, when you're beginning your relationship, look out for the red flags. Because some of the red flags that are there, when somebody gets into the house, they become even more. But I would want to say, when it comes to the question you've asked, Fade, when it comes to the issue of your spouse has hit you, your spouse has abused you, you keep quiet because there's a certain image you want to keep in the society. What is the best thing to do? Don't keep quiet about it. When you've been hit, when you're emotionally abused, and you keep it and you cover your spouse, they repeat it again, the third time, they now know this, you are ready to take it in. But the moment it happens, I'll be like, speak it out to them. If they are remorseful immediately, then probably you can, decide on how to start working on it. They repeat it again, bring it to that person. And I will always say, because when you bring, there will always be conflict if you bring someone you know. If you go to a parent, you go to a wherever, there will be that conflict. So the best thing is go seek guidance. Go seek counseling services. You can even just walk into a counselor's office, narrate your story to them. This is the way my husband is behaving. This is the way my wife is behaving. You're not reporting them so that you can have a case. Listen to a third voice speaking to you. Maybe that voice will wake you up and you'll realize this is not the same. If one abuses you spiritually, which is worse, because spiritually one comes with God. Wife submit you to your husband. So one rapes you today, rapes you tomorrow, rapes you the other day until submit. And here you are submitting as a good wife even when you're being abused. It is important to just walk into a counselor's office and then ask them, say I want to have a talk with you. This is what is happening in my life. They might open you up and you may get to know your spouse better than the way already you are feeling it. It could even be a child. Maybe the child, the way, especially you are beyond a teenager, the way they are treating you or you are treating them, or a work, a worker at home, the way they are being treated. That worker, even a house girl, because the house girls who have really, when we say domestic, they even house girls. The husband of the house repeatedly sleeps with the house girl without her consent, crawls into her room, sleeps, have sex with her, and she keeps quiet because she needs a job. And if she speaks about it, she loses her job, and she has needs back where she is. I always say, if you're that house girl, or a gardener, or a shabab, or whoever you are in that particular home, and you're feeling violated, please go talk to someone else. Yes. They will open you up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I love the fact that you said go talk to someone.
Yes.
Because I was to ask you, for people who cannot afford to see a counselor, then who else should they approach? Yeah. Of course, even as we are telling them to go see someone, they should be careful, because the people who won't help you, what a chocha, and make the situation that you're going through even worse than what it is already. But thank you so much.
Because if you can even talk to a pastor, for example, just to begin with, you can go talk to your pastor. Maybe your pastor, if you're a house girl, maybe your pastor is not your employer's pastor.
Yeah.
And if your employer, if your pastor is your pastor is your employer's pastor, probably you won't go to the next, because you see the tendency to agree with the employer might be higher.
Yeah.
If you are a lady or a man and you cannot afford a counselor, then the same. Try to talk to someone. You could talk to a pastor, but people like a best man, best maid, a father, a mother, they may be biased. Yes, very easily.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I must mention. Now, let's look at the abuser. So the victim is trying to look for help, seeing a counselor, seeing a minister of the word, and they want this person to reform. Yeah. First of all, Professor, let's talk about, is there hope that an abuser can reform and stop being abusive? And if there is hope, then how do you help such a person?
There is hope that this person can also reform, but our models there before have not been very good in dealing with people who have been sexually violated, or they have gone through other forms of domestic violation. Because we see that person as a person who needs to be left alone. But when they are left alone to continue with the same violation. They will meet it on other people, and therefore we need to help them. And again, we need to understand, a perpetrator of violence, could they have gone through experiences in their own life that are making them to be so resentful and angry with other people, or that is the only model they know in dealing with people? When they fight, when they beat, when they shout at people, demean them, intimidate them, could that be what they learned growing up? Because if that is the case, then we need to have grace on them. And also know they require change, and they require to heal from whatever they are going through. For many of them, when they are put aside and they are helped to look at what they have been doing and what they can do different and where it's coming from, indeed, they are able to appreciate that they can behave better. If they wouldn't want to be beaten themselves, and they wouldn't want to be shouted at, and they wouldn't want to be demeaned, then they appreciate that they too should treat other people with empathy, not the way they have been treating other people. So it may be a person who lacks skills, or someone who is hurting from past experiences, so they can reform if they are put in a program that helps them to face themselves and see what they do and where they are coming from, so that they can project themselves into the future.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about domestic violence, I have been reminded of a story that was in the newspaper of a couple that the man was violent, so the woman was the victim, and she was so confused because she didn't know whether to leave the marriage or not, because each evening the husband will come home, give her 1 or 2 blows, and then they'll go to bed, and she'll say that is the best moment ever, that each time the husband hits her, that is the best moment. So yes, she's hurting, her eyes is being damaged, she's receiving black eyes and all that, but after the beat, she just feels like the man loves her even more. How would you help such a victim? Because we understand that this is a very risk factor. I mean, she could lose her life. So even as we're talking about violence, there's some people who love that. that when a man comes home, beats you up, you feel like, yeah, this man loves me. Does this person needs help? First of all, let's start there. And how can you help such a person?
Indeed, they do. Because you can see even their very response to being beaten and being treated badly is unhealthy, is not okay. And this may be a person who went through violation, and therefore they have not been able to face up to their trauma.
Yeah.
Because when they deal with their trauma, they know they are important, they should be respected, they have rights, there are boundaries, there is what people should not do to another person. And therefore they start respecting themselves, and they wouldn't want another person to hurt them. So we would want to say that this person is very sick and requires, first of all, to hear from what happened to them, other experiences they may have gone through, so that they can make this to be okay. Because violation cannot be okay unless you're not okay.
And just to add a little bit, a man who enjoys making love, let's be candid, to the wife when the wife is hurting. Probably she's angry, she's unhappy, and yet you enjoy making love to her, or you hit her and then you still enjoy going to bed and making love to her. That's a dysfunction, because you may almost want to say that person is sadist. Is somebody who is enjoying pleasure in the pain of other people. When you inflict pain, then you feel nice. You are sick. You are sick, and you should be able to go for help. Yes. If the other person is, because this is the climax of friendship, good moments together. So if when one person is hurting is when we are like, yeah, feeling nice, even the libido for the man goes high, then it means you are very sick. I don't think like you are a macho man or you are a strong guy. No, it means you are sick.
You are sick.
Yes, and because the people will even engage into domestic violence just because they want to prove that I am the man here.
Yeah.
That aspect of feeling that I need to beat the children to be known I'm the man, beat my wife to be known I'm the man in this home, is a dysfunction, because it means you have a low self-esteem. That's why you want to prove it. When you find yourself seated in your home and you're like, mtajua mimi ndio mwanaume hapa. And you're telling your children, nani alisema wewe si mwanaume? You are the one doubting yourself. You know, you're telling your wife, utajua mimi ndio nilikuoa. When did she tell you she married you? Or you're telling your husband, mimi utajua mimi ndio kusema hapa. Like, who is in contention? You are the only one who doesn't know. It's like when I sit in the church and I'm a minister and I tell people and I bang the table and say, mtajua mimi ndio mchungaji hapa. Seriously, who else is having a gown? Who else is having a collar? So it means like everybody knows I'm a minister apart from me. I'm the one who doesn't know I'm a minister. That's why I need to prove to it. So it means I am suffering from some inferiority of a kind, and I'm trying to prove it. And many people who go home and fight their spouses, they say when you find them out there, they are very weak. So they want to prove their strength in the house.
In the house.
Yes.
Wow. As a counseling psychologist, as well as a marriage and family therapist, allow me to ask this. Are there any reasons that can justify violence, especially domestic violence? When a couple come to you for advice, and maybe there's one or two in the relationship, are there any reasons that can justify and say, okay, this man is violent because you did this and that?
One, no. The Bible says in Romans chapter 8 verse 1, there is no condemnation to them in Christ Jesus. One of the things that have justified, violence is when people start condemning themselves. You get condemned so much by others to the point you condemn yourself. Because I have found people say, my husband beats me, but I know I am the one who talks back to him.
Yes.
I know I am the one who does not behave well. Or my husband is cheating out, and I know I am the problem because I deny him, conjugal, because he comes up tired and all that. You have been abused to the point of now not even looking at the other person. You have accepted yourself as a victim. And the moment you take the victim position, you hardly can look for help because you think the person abusing you, he's doing okay. The problem is you.
Yeah.
What do I want to say? In my opinion, there is nothing that can justify domestic violence. Because the moment we stop talking, we stop fighting. So it means there is a communication breakdown. That's why there is violence in that home. So in my opinion, as a minister, as a counselor, no reason that can justify domestic violence.
Prof?
Yeah, like Rev says, there is nothing that can justify domestic violence.
Yeah.
When we look at what it does to people, it makes one feel like they don't understand themselves anymore. They are not able to do things that they used to do before, even taking care of the children, if it is a wife. Also, you can even develop depression and other mental health illnesses. When we look at what domestic violence does, then there is no justification as to why it should happen. Families, when they start off, they want to be in harmony, they want to be cohesive, they want to make sure they resolve their issues, whatever issues they are going through in the family. And therefore, domestic violence is dealing with issues in a way that is not going to give us solutions or is going to complicate the situation much more. It is also about not involving people in problem solving and decision making and conflict resolution in a family, but telling yourself that you are more important than other people and you're justified to do things that are hurtful to other people and you should not be asked by anyone. So this particular person does not understand the harm that they are causing other people. And therefore, because of that, they too require support, like we have said.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think this is a point or a case that is in the Bible. God loves everyone equally. So even an abuser needs love and support, because could be abuse they went through while they were young. So that is what that has turned them into an abuser as well. And I'd say just being lenient and accepting everyone and working with them. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And having mercy on them. If you say it. Because when one is inflicting pain on other people and you feel okay, it means you're sick.
Yeah.
This self-belief in yourself, that you walk home and you're like, why isn't food ready? And because the food is ready, it does not matter the reason I hit you. Where have you come from at this moment? Even before you answer, you have a slap on the face.
Yeah.
The fact that I feel justified to inflict pain on an adult who is above 15, above 18, and think that the inflicting of the pain will cause them to change, I need help. I need to be loved. I need to be looked at with the eyes of mercy. Kuhurumiwa. You see, like, instead of like walking around and feeling like the giant here, guys, you look at me and have mercy on me. By the way, if you find people who, even when they go to the bar and they take alcohol, they're all over fighting or breaking glasses, don't look at them as a strong man. Look at them and have mercy on them. Yeah. These people who think by breaking a glass, I'll be respected more. by knocking off your teeth, I will become more of a man. Yeah. Now, that person, muangalie, muhurumie, kabisa.
And with that said, let's take a very short break right here on Transforming Families. We'll be right back in a few, so don't go too far.
Next Monday on Rays of Hope.
How do we start understanding this challenge in the face of the discussion that we're having today on the fight against the vice that is corruption?
The life of a leader with integrity, coupled with commitment and persistence, could be a rewarding experience.
A man of God must have two things going together. He must have contentment, and in order to get contentment, he must have integrity.
What God intended for life for us is not what we are chasing. He intended for us to fellowship with Him, to know Him deeper.
That's next Monday at 8 p.m. only on GAK TV.
Kwenye Kazi na Mali tunakuangazia, tunakuhamasisha, kukuhimiza na kukuelimisha kuhusu kazi, shughuli na mbinu za wachapakazi mbalimbali kuchuma riziki.
Karibu sana katika kipindi chetu siku ya Jumamosi leo.
Wengine walikuwa na mwanzo mgumu.
Nilipata loan kutoka kwa nyanya yangu.
Wengine wana uwezo maalum na wanafanya mambo maalum.
Nilizaliwa hivi.
La mno, wote ni wachapakazi halali wanaojenga uchumi wa taifa. Ungana naye
Mpishi mpakuzi kutoka kwangu Mpishi Mpakuzi
Vincent Kirusi kila Jumanne saa 1:30 jioni, anapoweka bayana kuwa mtafutaji hachoki, akichoka kesha pata. Ni hapa GAK TV.
Welcome back to Transforming Families, and thank you so much for keeping it right here. Today we are talking about domestic violence. This is just in case you are joining us right now. Tell a friend that Transforming Families is on, so let them tune into GAK TV right about now. So keep talking to us on our social media pages. Facebook and YouTube is at GAK TV Kenya. Now, right about now, I'd like us to shift the focus a bit from the victim of abuse or violence in the relationship and look at the people who are affected by what is happening. And in this instance, I'd like us to talk about the children or the kids. How are they affected by what is happening? Could be they're witnessing the mother and the father throwing blows at each other, or could be they can sense that, you know, mama and papa are not okay, something is happening. Maybe they've not seen it physically, but there's the, I'd say, atmosphere in their family that is just not okay. Professor?
Yeah, they are secondary victims. The mom or dad may be the primary victim,
Okay.
because that is the main person who is being violated.
Yeah.
But then the children are part of that violation, and therefore they too are victims. They are victims in the sense that there is what they are drinking in, and there is what they are lacking because of the violation that continues in their family. For example, when we think about when they see dad and mom fighting, or even one of them being beaten, what does it feel for them? They feel they don't have people to look up to. They feel helpless in their situation. They feel lost. And that affects them in very many ways. It affects them in their schooling, in their performance in school. It can also affect them in the sense of not being able to regulate their own feelings and emotions. And again, they are being taught, when you don't solve a problem, or when you have a problem, this is the way that you deal with a problem. So the mentors and the ones who are modeling how to resolve the issues, they are modeling in a way that is not going to be beneficial to the children. And most of all is that children can get traumatized. And that traumatization can even get them to levels of developing mental health illnesses or even personality disorders. Personality disorders like a narcissistic personality disorder, a child who feels entitled. Where does that child come from? Where are they developed? They are developed in families like those ones. Where is a child who is going to be drinking or even using drugs coming from? We know there are children who come from families where parents are very responsible and they are not using. But we also know that this is an experience that can make a child to go and compensate and look for things that can make them happy, that can make them feel okay with themselves, because they are feeling scared with what is happening in their family.
Yeah, well, let's touch on the behavioral changes that I'd say can be noticed from the kids who are in a violent family. Yeah.
One, the children really get affected, like Prof is saying.
Sure.
Everybody wants to live in a very peaceful atmosphere. Nobody wants to live in a chaotic atmosphere.
Yeah.
So the moment you become violent in your home, your wife, your children, the first thing they do is that they resent you. So the children will resent the father if the father is the one who is violent. Some even resent the mother because they think the mother is too bad. That's why she gets beaten up around here. Or they may want to try to sympathize with the mother. So one of the things that gets into the children is fear. They also live a life of anxiety. They're very young. They are kind of not sure what happens tomorrow. So that fear of the unknown, of what will happen, will my mother die? Could I lose my mommy tomorrow or lose my father tomorrow? That fear has a challenge in their development, the way they develop. It crushes their self-esteem in a big way, because the way they can be listened to and express their feelings, it cannot. So even outside when they go and they're with their peers, they are not able to express their feelings because their self-esteem is down there. Because at home, if a mother who is 30, 20 can be beaten, maybe for answering daddy back, what of me? Me, I will only be killed. So even when they go out there, and they're supposed to speak, they are too little, they cannot be able to speak. So the self-esteem goes. They are no longer able to speak out, freely. Then they also lack the ability to believe in themselves. You see, when your self-esteem goes, you no longer believe in yourself. So the developmental stages of a child, or the developmental life of a child, is 100% challenged by that kind of an atmosphere. They are babies, they are children who may think violence is okay. So because they have seen their parents being violent, they go out there, they also become very violent. They will beat girls, they will beat men, they will be fighting around. That's the other way that it can be able to, to affect them. The others who will choose never to be violent, because of what violence did to their home, they choose out there and decide, Mimi, mambo ya violence, I have seen it the way it did to my family, I will never be able to get into this violent behavior. So it does affect the children in a very, very big way. And that's why it's important for the children to be helped.
Yeah. Let's talk about when to leave for the victim. Yeah. They're in a violent, intimate relationship. And it's affecting them, of course. This could lead to murder if it's physical violence and any other form of violence that you've mentioned, financial, emotional abuse, which could be draining and lead to clinical depression. I'd like to hear from both of you, Prof, if you'd highlight this from a perspective of your well-being, live when you're still alive, when you're still okay, and then Rev will touch on the biblical perspective and spiritual point of view.
Living is an alternative, because if the perpetrator of the violation is not changing, and there are cycles of violence that are happening in the family. It is not once, it is not twice. And it escalates. You're beaten, you're shouted at, you're intimidated, you're shamed. And then someone says, I'm very sorry, I will never repeat it again. And you cool down for some time, and then it comes up again. And you realize it has become a trend. You hardly are able to go through a period of time without seeing the recurrence of that violence. Then you realize, if we cannot change, we have tried to talk about it in front of our parents. We have even called friends. We have even called the people who witnessed our wedding. We have even gone to the pastor. We have gone to the counselors. You may not wait to go through all those people for some cases. You need to step out, because the violation is at a magnitude. You cannot wait until you go to all these people, because you will have been killed before you go to all those people. But there are situations where now you are seeking support, and you realize even when you go to the counselor, your partner does not want to work on it. Your partner is saying, you work on it, you are the problem. You are the problem in our marriage. And you realize you will never get to resolve your issues within your marriage. That is the time you decide, I do not want to be killed in this relationship. Neither do I want to be sick. Let me separate so that I can be able to rear our children in an atmosphere that is also healthy for them. So you live because of your health, you live because you don't want to be killed and you don't want further damage to yourself or anyone else in that family. But we have seen situations where a mother has said, I have gone to my people, and you leave the children at home. And the father turns on the children to violate them, whether it is sexually or physically. Even when you're living, you need to know, how am I living? And if I leave some of the people within the household, am I leaving them to the danger? Or what we need to do as a family, because it needs to take care of all the persons that are within this household.
Thank you so much for that.
As I get to the spiritual perspective, just to add upon what Paul has said,
Sure.
before you leave, it's important to ask yourself, like he said, where am I living to? What will be happening? What will happen to the people I've left behind? Because like you said, it's not just about the victim, that is what is around the victim as well. But living is an option, and I want to say that. It's also good to realize for the men and women that it's even a little bit easier for the woman to leave. And that's like you telling men, make your home very peaceful, men. Because if that home breaks, you think the wife is the one who has a bigger challenge. It is the man who has a bigger problem. Why? A woman has 3 husbands, like they say. She has the husband in the house who can provide for her comfortably. She has the children growing up. Once the children are grown to a certain age, they will take care of their mother easily. Children can take their mother and live with their mother, and they are okay with it. For men, it's very hard for you to go and live with your children. It becomes very difficult. The other one is her father. Your wife can comfortably go back to her parents. Na akifika nyumbani ambaye karibu mtoto wangu. Nani alikuguza? Usikubali akuguze tena, kaa hapa ukule na ukunywe. The man can never move to his parents' home. Mwanaume akirudi kwa baba yake, aseme ati baba nimekuja nimefukuzwa na bibi. Hata ulizo sasa tukue wanaume wawili kwa hiyo. How can we be too many in this house? So he'll be kicked out of his own father's house. So making your home better, it's for your own good as a man. That's what you say in transforming families. You know, a stable family, a stable society, and a stable you. That's why it's like nurturing a family. Nurturing a tree. Nurture this tree, grow it, call the family, for your own good. Ile matunda itachunwa kwa hiyo miti is for your own advantage. Usipopata matunda, shida ni wewe in this whole thing. Spiritually, the Bible says, in Ephesians 5 verses 21, submit to one another in reference to Christ. So you're not submitting, and I like the verse 21 because many people are beginning from verse 22. And I don't know why, by the way, even our marriage liturgy begins in verse 22, which starts by saying, wives, submit to your husbands. But in verse 21, which we leave out, says, submit to one another in reference to Christ. The vernacular Bible is even harder. Verse 22, where we begin, says, Inua to me, the Kagiri Adulia. But you see, already kind of give the women the command to respect their husbands. But I love verse 21 of Ephesians 5 that says, submitting to one another in reference to Christ. It's mutual. So the moment you submit to one another becomes easier. The wife submit to your husband. Husbands are told, love your wives. So if you're not like, and by the way, husbands are even harder because they're told, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave his own life for her. So if I love my family so much, I'm willing to die for them. But now I'm the one killing them. I'm the one fighting them. I'm the one beating them. So since I'm not obeying what the Bible says, then the wife should leave because I'm not loving her. If your wife is not submitting to you, she's not respecting you as a husband, then it's okay for you to leave. So leaving is an option, even scripturally, because you're not in obedience to the scripture. So the moment you don't obey the scripture, that's it. Even the children, the Bible says clearly, children obey your parents, so that it shall be well with you. So the children, when they don't obey, then there's an option of leaving that home. Parents, do not exasperate your children. You know, msiwasumbue watoto wenu. You know, msiwachokoze. So kama mzazi umechokoza mtoto, na Biblia imesema usichokoze mtoto. Mtoto akichukua mizigo aseme nimehama nyumbani, basi mtoto sio mtundu. Shida ni kwamba mzazi amemchokoza mtoto na Biblia imesema usimchokoze. Don't exasperate. So I'm saying biblically, spiritually, when there is violence, it is okay to move. We move out so that the situation can be worked on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I like that, and thank you so much for putting it very well out there, because for a lot of Christians, I'd say the dilemma is always that I'll walk out and then what will fellow people say at church, yeah, that I've left my marriage. But they don't understand what you're going through in the marriage. It is only you who understands and how it is affecting you as a person. So thank you so much for highlighting that.
And to add is that the biggest problem that we have is that the Christianity we have is not even biblical, and most of the time. It is the people's own understanding of what Christianity is. So we will stop not moving out because of the regulations of the church. If I am a member of the Women's Guild and I have violence, I step out of my home a little bit. The Women's Guild will come for the kitamba. Kwa sababu sijatumelia. You know, they even say, mutumia nego tumelia moshi. You know, I'm not really taking care of my family. You know, so the problem is me. But you see, do not know what person is going through that. And I always say, when people are divorced, or people are separated, or somebody is in a challenge in the marriage, before you blame them, listen to them. Understand what they are going through. Probably what that woman, that man, that child is going through. If you are given the same, you might have left many times ago. Yes.
Thank you for that. Now, as we're talking about transforming the society, how do we as a society work together to ensure that the numbers that are there of the domestic violence cases have reduced? Yeah. Could be policy implementation. How should the police handle domestic violence cases when reported, other than saying, wewe ni mtu mzima, unachapaje na bibi, you know? So how do we as a society ensure that the cases have reduced?
Yeah. I think we need a multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary, you know, people in different disciplines and using different approaches. That is what we require when it comes to domestic violence, because it's a community challenge, it's a family challenge, it's a national challenge. And therefore, we need to make sure that there are laws of the land that speak to the issue of domestic violence, so that we can know when one has violated another one in the different ways that they can do that, what needs to happen to that. Because they are criminals that, at that point, and that is a criminal offense according to the law. So the law of the land should help us to make decisions regarding how to deal with certain persons that are perpetrating violence and harming other people. At the same time, we need policies, because the policies are going to give birth to programs. And we already know that we have policies in some certain institutions that are helping to calm or to curb the domestic violence, or the SGBV, the sexual and gender-based violence. So the policies need to give birth to the programs, and the programs now, they need to take care of the people. But also that we need to do advocacy for parents, like what we are doing, because this is an advocacy program when we are talking about what happens to people when they go through domestic violence. and different kinds of violence. It brings awareness to the people so that people will know, I don't have to keep quiet when I'm going through this. So advocacy needs to continue in different platforms. And you can see when we are talking about multidisciplinary, the media is coming in, the educators are coming in, the priests and the clergy. We have the law enforcement officers to come in. We have the policymakers. We have the researchers to give us the data so that we can work with the data. We have the counselors and psychologists and therapists to come and heal the people who have gone through the trauma of being violated in their families or even outside their families. So we require a kind of a strategy that takes care, that brings everyone on board so that we can be able to address a community phenomenon and a national phenomenon and a family phenomenon too.
Thank you so much. As we come to an end of today's episode, I'd like us to highlight a very specific group of people who are at a high risk of abuse and being victims of violence. These are elders and the aged in the society. Of course, they do not speak much. They don't have the, I'd say, strength to fight back. How do we help them, and how can you tell that this person is a victim of violence?
When it comes to the elder in the society, I would love to begin with the Galatians 6:7 that says, whatsoever a man soweth, the same they shall reap.
Sure.
If you have an elderly person around you and you're supposed to take care of them, just remember that whatsoever a man or a woman soweth, the same shall reap. So you start abusing them, mistreating them, someday you'll get older and you do not know what will happen to you. I'm not trying to scare you, but this is the Bible. So it's important for you to take care of the elderly. And you can tell whether an elderly person is being abused by the way they react towards a certain person. You'll even see the way probably one reacts towards, a servant. And, if a servant comes in, you can see the way the elderly react either with the fear, or if they were like seated carelessly, they straighten up immediately. Either they get abused or they get, either physically or emotionally. So you can tell from the way they react. The body language is what will speak more, because sometimes they may not say it because they are afraid. But there are cases where you will know an elderly person is being abused because they speak. But those that are not able to speak because maybe of the stroke and other things, the body language is what speaks more in their situation. Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Reverend. Prof, would like to add something on that?
Yes, I think when Reverend is talking about emotional abuse, like the way they are being shouted at, they are being told things that shame them. Even when they are asking for food, they are denied food at the point they want to take the food or even tea. And it can be very subtle, very, very subtle, very subtle. Even your own children can abuse you as an elderly person without realizing. Because many a times we say, Mom and Dad, now you brought us up, you educated us, now we don't want you to be doing anything. And Mom says, I want to go back to my farm and sheep and take care of them. What Mom is saying is that I want to have meaning and purpose of my own life. When I am doing this, I have a continuity in my own life. But when you keep me here and you want to feed me and to bathe me and to give me a worker to be taking care of me, I am not living. Especially the way I would want to live, I'm not living. So we need to be cognizant of that we can abuse our elderly people, though we love them. But whatever we are doing to them and we are saying to them is about saying, now your life can come to a standstill. You are only going to be eating and drinking, but that's not how life is. They need to be doing something so that they can feel they are involved in life.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add upon what Prof has said.
All right.
Briefly, just a minute. When you put an adult person whose faculties are still okay, but because maybe they have challenge kidogo in miguu na nini, you putting them in the house, you love them. It's your daddy, your mommy. Eat, drink, and all that. You see, you can't go back to the village and take care of your sheep. You can't go back to the village and take care of your cow. You're telling your daddy or your mommy, all you're now waiting for is to die. You do not realize how psychologically that is difficult to the person. Because you're telling them now, umetoka kwako nyumbani, umekuja, you will only go back there, to be buried. You are now done with life. But the moment like they have come from the doctor, now they are a little bit better, taking them back to the village and allowing them to even walk there and see their cow, see everything, even order you as a son. Maybe you can't afford a worker and tell you, enda kule chini ukaangalia kama ndizi zimekuwa. Enda pale uangalie ile mbuzi kama bado iko. They feel they have a meaning in life. They will even tell you, naona saa hii miguu yangu itakuwa mzuri. Yet the doctor is telling them now this can't work. But when you keep them there, you are telling them, wewe na maisha mmemalizana. Kabisa. So that is so.
Just waiting for the hour.
Yes, waiting for the hour.
All right, now briefly again, as we come to the conclusion of today's show, last message could be to a victim, could be to policymakers, to the church, anything in regards to domestic violence and what we are talking about. I don't know who would like to go first.
There you go. You go.
Yeah. Regarding domestic violence, we need to take care of our own family members. And taking care of them does not involve hurting them and paining them and putting them in situations where they forget who they are. Even when they do things that you're looking at and you feel, I can beat you up, don't try to do that. It is not the way to deal with an adult. We deal with adults by talking through issues. If that cannot happen, they cannot stop, escalate to another level, to the counselors, to the clergy, to other people who can listen to you and help you deal with the issues that are making you to violate each other in your families.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, viewers, for staying with us here. Like we say, a stable family for a stable society. Communication and communication and communication. Please, talk to one another. The moment we stop talking to each other, it is the moment we start fighting. And if you're not stable at home, even when you go out in the community and the society, you will find yourself passing the same toxicity from the family to the community. I would say, stay out of violence. If you're a violent victim, please seek help. Don't sit there waiting to die. Seek help. The Lord bless you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and be gracious to you.
Thank you all for today. And I'm really glad that you were able to join us all. I want to say right now is take it upon yourself to be your brother's keeper and to be your sister's keeper, because it is only in this way that we are able to uplift each other. When I am there for you, when my moment comes and I'm down, you'll be there for me, and we make the society a better place. So thank you all for keeping it tuned right here on Transforming Families. My name is Faith Kaulu. Till next time, keep it CAC TV.
Amen.